KGW investigates.
I don't do the Uber pets.
He's not a pet, he's a service animal.
People who are legally blind say they're being left at the curb.
I feel like students aren't safe still.
We expose the scope of teacher sexual abuse across the state.
It's mind-boggling and it's infuriating that this can occur.
And an emergency airlift for a little girl in Southern Oregon. Insurance refused to cover the air ambulance, leaving her family with a $60,000 bill.
It's addictive for a council to have this option because there's no need to go to the voter. It's instant money.
The growing trend of cities adding fees onto your utility bills to pay for just about anything.
I'm Kyle Aboshi.
And I'm Evan Watson of KGW News.
As investigative reporters, we go beyond the headlines. We're able to spend a little bit more time digging into stories.
One example of that recently is we went beyond and dug a little deeper into recent high-profile cases of teacher sexual abuse to find out that dozens of teachers across Oregon had their licenses revoked for sexual misconduct over the past few years.
In St. Helens, Oregon, the school year has been shrouded by scandal.
It's been shocking because it's just more and more keeps coming out about it.
Gabe Barker and Anna Boyko are high school seniors. Barker's former choir teacher, Eric Stearns, faces 29 sexual abuse charges against 16 different people. Retired math teacher Mark Collins is accused of sexual abuse against 4 different students. St. Helens Superintendent Scott Stockwell resigned, and high school principal Katie Wagner is on leave. She's accused of failing to report the abuse.
It's kind of hard to people to trust their teachers.
But St. Helens, while in the headlines, only represents a fraction of educator abuse across Oregon.
It stands for a much larger problem. It's the tip of the iceberg.
To understand the scope, KGW reviewed hundreds of teacher disciplinary records, investigations and sanctions, uncovered by public records requests. We found 60 teachers in Oregon had their licenses revoked for sexual conduct with students over the last 6 years. Another 36 sexual conduct cases are under active investigation.
The numbers are higher than I thought they would be. It's really sad to hear how high they are, although not entirely surprising.
Amber Kinney and Peter Jancy are attorneys who specialize in child sexual abuse cases.
The number of revoked licenses doesn't reflect the victim count, and it doesn't reflect the predator count, because we know from our work in this area that it's very difficult to get teachers to the point where their license is actually revoked. And even if they are reported, they may not have discipline against them, and they may not lose their license.
Oregon's Teacher Standards and Practices Commission investigates reported abuse. The TSPC posts discipline orders online, often years after a case is first reported. Examples include a 17-year-old girl who said a Hillsborough teacher sent her explicit photos and videos, kissed her, touched her, and attempted to have sex with her. A Woodburn teacher who had sex with a student and paid the student $20,000 in exchange for a thumb drive of explicit photos he had sent. And a Portland student who said a teacher started grooming her when she was 15, texting, sending Snapchats, nude photos, and having phone sex over video. Each teacher declined to interview with TSPC, their licenses being revoked by default.
Grooming is the gateway to sexual abuse. Most cases start out where grooming occurs.
Kinney and Jancy say common patterns leading to sexual abuse include isolating kids and messaging with them privately on social media. TSPC classifies these as boundary violations.
You see that boundary violations can often lead to something more insidious?
Absolutely. I mean, almost every case, maybe every case I've ever handled, there was some indication earlier of boundary violations.
KGW found another 21 Oregon teachers who had their licenses revoked over the last 6 years for other sexual transgressions that didn't reach the point of sexual conduct. Most of these cases are related to grooming allegations. TSPC is currently investigating 116 boundaries cases. Jancy says it's a sign that adults need to speak up sooner.
When we see red flag behavior, we immediately intervene. We alert the experts so that they can do the proper investigations. We make sure that predators don't continue to have access to kids while investigations are going on. And also, we need to continue to reinforce to victims that this isn't their fault, they're not alone, and that things can get better.
Jancy says there's momentum. Children are increasingly willing to speak out about abuse. But is every concern reported?
I feel like kids haven't ever been afraid to actually speak up about anything, but it's been getting the right voice to speak up about it.
Oregon law makes individual school districts responsible for educator background checks. That includes contacting previous employers and checking for TSPC discipline orders. But state investigations can take years to complete. Very few failure to report cases are ever filed, and some abuse allegations are kept quiet.
If you have support, more people will be talking about something.
Jancy says Oregon should expand reporting requirements and tighten background checks within the state. There's no state record of how many concerning teachers have moved from one district to the next.
If you don't fix the culture and the system that those people are operating in, you're playing whack-a-mole. You're getting one predator and waiting for the next one to pop up.
Students want to be believed and supported, and for adults to be more vigilant.
It's hard to talk. So friends, teachers, all these people who say this, they need to talk.
We get a lot of our stories from people like you, tips from viewers who might have a problem or notice something that isn't quite right.
That includes people who are legally blind. They reached out to me after being left at the curb. Uber and Lyft drivers were canceling rides after noticing their guide dogs, which is illegal. Life comes one step at a time for Erica Daniels. She's legally blind and relies on her guide dog, Win, to help navigate obstacles.
Good boy, Win.
And lead her way.
You know, we'll be trying to find the door to somewhere. He finds the door to the entrance to places instead of me hitting the windows and the doors, the sides of buildings trying to find the door. He just takes me right to the door.
To get to and from work and around town, the Fairview woman uses ride shares like Uber or Lyft.
Please make sure you're ready for pickup outside.
But those rides are sometimes rejected after rideshare drivers spot her guide dog.
I don't carry a pet.
He is not a pet. He is a service animal. It's against the law. Okay, I'll let him know. I'll let Uber know.
Erica captured these interactions with Uber drivers on her cell phone.
Yeah, I have a guide dog. Yeah, my service animal. What's that? Yeah, you can. If it's a service animal, you have to take them.
Erica says the drivers often come up with excuses like they don't want to mess up their car. One driver said he had a deadly dog allergy.
It would kill him, I guess.
Erica usually just gives up and then has to wait for another ride.
I've had times when I had two drivers back-to-back refuse us.
The federal civil rights law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Oregon state law prohibit rideshare drivers from discriminating based on disability. Both Uber and Lyft have policies requiring the accommodation of service animals.
Lyft's policy and the law require all drivers to accept service animals regardless of allergies, fear, religious, or cultural objection.
Despite these policies, we found multiple people who say discrimination continues to happen.
The humiliation of begging for the privilege of giving him your money, begging for the right to get in the car and get what you know, it was humiliating.
Patricia Kepler of Aloha says she and her guide dog Gus have had ride after ride canceled.
One day, it took 4 rides. I had 3 cancellations before the 4th ride finally showed up.
And Sharon Zinger of Gresham says she too has been turned away by rideshare drivers refusing to take her guide dog Reagan.
I've been hanging on to the handle of a car before with a driver yelling, no dog, and driving off with my hand on the handle.
Sharon admits the stress of being rejected by Uber or Lyft drivers repeatedly can be overwhelming.
But it does take an emotional toll on you. It makes you feel like you're less of a human. It makes me feel like I don't have the same rights as everyone else.
In response to our questions, a Lyft spokesperson wrote, discrimination has no place in the Lyft community. And Uber said, we urge any rider who experiences a service denial to report it to us so we can take appropriate action, which may include permanent deactivation of a driver's account. In 2016 and 2017, Uber and Lyft reached settlements after being sued by the National Federation of the Blind. As a result, Uber and Lyft say they've made their service animal policies clear, worked to educate drivers, and made it easier to file complaints. But Erica argues it clearly isn't working. Too many times, she's waiting at the curb with Win when an Uber or Lyft driver rejects her.
They'll pull up and they'll, no dog,
leaving them stranded with no ride.
So Kyle, have things improved?
Not really. They say rides are still being canceled. Although in February, Uber provided a new service on their app. Basically, it's a feature that allows people to opt in, notifying drivers in advance that they have a service animal. That way, if they try and cancel, Uber sends them a warning saying they can't do that. It's illegal.
Another story we looked into, you might notice extra charges on your water or utility bills. More Oregon cities are adding flat fees to cover all sorts of costs, anything from police officers to streetlights. Even Portland is now looking at adding a flat utility fee to cover transportation costs. These fees aren't taxes, they're not voter approved, and they can be adjusted at will by city leaders. So is this a sign of what's to come?
Flat fee for everybody.
Joe Corsilia lives in St. Helens, Oregon. He's a former city councilman, and one fee on his monthly water bill has him boiling.
It's addictive for a council to have this option because there's no need to go to the voter. It's instant money.
Residents of St. Helens pay a $10 per month fee on their water bills, but the money doesn't go to cover utility costs. It pays for public safety. KGW found that a growing number of Oregon cities, big and small, are adding or increasing fees on utility and water bills that don't actually pay for utilities. Instead, the money is spent on things like police officers and firefighters, parks and recreation programs, road repair, and streetlights. There's $12 per month on utility bills in Grants Pass, $20 in Independence, $13 for a single-family home in McMinnville.
You expect cities will raise and raise and raise these fees?
I expect cities that get into trouble to raise and raise and raise these fees. They'll run to them when there is nothing else, when they really don't want to put a ballot measure out there, don't have time.
Last year, St. Helens city leaders floated the idea of increasing their fee from $10 a month to $25 a month.
It's not something we're unique to. We're not, this mean city out here adding this fee on. A lot of cities do that don't have the tax base.
One council member said it may be legal, but it would be a bad look, explaining that utility fees are just an access to charge when you need money, according to minutes from the meeting. Instead, St. Helens proposed a tax levy to pay for more police officers, which voters rejected. Corsilia wonders if voters were jaded. They were already paying $10 a month for public safety.
Was that levy affected by the fee?
Jenna Jones is a tax and finance lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities.
We don't advise on any certain fee for any certain city, but it's something that they can look at, that they can consider.
You all have flagged cities and said, hey, a utility fee is an option.
Yes.
The League of Oregon Cities surveyed cities in late 2023, collecting partial data on which cities are increasing utility fees.
I think we're finding more and more cities across the state who didn't know other people were doing it. We've heard from some cities who are like, I thought I was the first to come up with putting a public safety fee on my utility bill.
Jones says many cities need to use utility fees because property tax laws in Oregon restrict revenue growth.
A lot of our cities are near or coming up on a crisis, a budget crisis. That's because Measure 5 and 50 and the property tax system, which is the main funding source for cities, is incredibly constrained.
So utility fees are gaining popularity. They're easy to add onto existing bills. There are no statewide limits on how high they can go, and public notifications are certainly recommended, but not required.
There's that natural balance that cities can't just raise these and raise these and raise these administratively because there are ramifications that community members have in their control. They could recall their council. They could amend the charter so it has to be voter approved.
Political ramifications, not legal ramifications.
Yes.
If more cities are approaching economic crisis in the coming years, do you anticipate more local governments will either add or expand these types of utility fees?
They could. I think the other option is they cut services.
In St. Helens, the current $10 public safety fee will help build a new police station. A spokesperson says the city is currently looking at ways to increase revenue and anticipates that ideas to increase police funding will be a main discussion topic in the coming months. Corsilia is afraid that a fee increase could be pitched again.
I don't have a problem if I vote on a taxation issue and it doesn't pass or does pass, whichever my liking is. I live with it. This you can't live with because you'll never know. You don't know what the popularity is. You don't know how it's being spent. There's no accountability.
Not only are we watching government, but business too.
Right, including insurance companies. A family in Southern Oregon reached out after their little girl needed to be airlifted for emergency surgery. Then came the bill, $60,000, and the insurance company refused to cover that air ambulance ride.
Typically, there's no slowing down Gracelyn Guyette. So when she came into the house looking cold and pale and couldn't move her arm after taking a fall, her mom, Crystal, knew something must be seriously wrong.
I think that's what concerned me most as a mother, is your child is just kind of like listless, and her eyes seem kind of distant.
After examining an x-ray of her arm, doctors at an urgent care clinic sent Gracelyn to the nearest emergency room, Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center in Medford.
This is very severe. Like they're like, this is really, really bad.
Hospital records listed Gracelyn's admission type as emergent severe or life-threatening. The then 5-year-old had suffered a broken elbow at the growth plate and required emergency surgery. She needed to be airlifted immediately, the hospital explained, because no pediatric orthopedic surgeon was available locally.
Why couldn't they treat her here?
They didn't have a doctor that was insured. It was an insurance concern to operate on a 5-year-old.
Hospital staff made arrangements for an air ambulance to transport Gracelyn from Medford to Portland, a roughly 50-minute flight, avoiding icy roads and any possible delay.
It would feel odd as a parent when all these doctors are telling you she's got to go by air ambulance now, to be like, nope, wait,
Photos from February 25th, 2022 show Gracelyn being loaded into a small plane. The air ambulance, operated by Mercy Flights, flew Gracelyn and her mother to Portland, where she underwent emergency surgery at OHSU Dornbecker Children's Hospital. The procedure was effective, and soon Gracelyn returned home to Southern Oregon. Then, the bill came. The insurance company, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, expected Gracelyn's family to pay the full air ambulance bill, nearly $60,000.
It's mind-boggling and it's infuriating that this can occur.
The insurer was willing to pay for the ambulance on the ground, to and from the airport, but not the airplane. According to its denial letter, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield determined that Gracelyn's air ambulance ride was not medically necessary.
There's nothing that I can possibly think of that we would have done differently in this situation, and yet, here we are.
The family appealed, as did the air ambulance provider Mercy Flights. But at every turn, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield denied their claim.
Every time we appeal, I think, okay, they got to get it right this time.
And Gracelyn's family isn't alone.
We got this $60,000 bill in the mail, and we're like, this is strange, we have insurance.
Our station in Denver, KUSA, has reported on other families facing hefty air ambulance bills after their insurance claims were denied.
$60,000, and their insurance company, Anthem, said it wouldn't pay.
You're just floored. You're like, seriously?
Earlier this year, a group of ER doctors wrote to federal health officials saying they've seen a spike in denials of claims, often involving air ambulance bills. The reason? Doctors say the No Surprises Act. The federal law intended to protect patients from unexpected medical bills. Insurers can get around the law if they determine care is not medically necessary, and insurers themselves get to decide what that means.
So there absolutely is a major problem going on that's affecting more and more families.
We emailed Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield in late November. 9 days later, a spokesperson responded, explaining, "We did not originally receive the necessary medical information to justify air transport, but after receiving more information, the claim was approved."
What's your reaction?
We're thrilled. We're very happy.
Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield wouldn't say who failed to provide the necessary medical information. Both the hospital, Asante, and the air ambulance company, Mercy Flights, declined to comment.
The appeal that we sent that they just approved was identical to what was sent before. So it was maybe a new set of eyes that looked at it. But I think certainly the pressure of having media on them is really probably what made this get approved.
Gracelyn's parents say the bill felt like a dark cloud hanging over their family finances. They're relieved to have things cleared up. They just wish it hadn't taken so long.
We're always looking for stories. It doesn't matter the topic.
Yeah, if you've got a tip for us, scan the code on your screen or you can email us.
You can watch other KGW investigations on your schedule on the KGW Plus app or by downloading the KGW mobile app or visiting the KGW YouTube channel.